Hello.
Hey.
Give people a few minutes to join. Nice to see all of you.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Ooh, Monica, are you in New Orleans this week?
Dublin.
Nice.
Still in Dublin this week.
Dublin.
Maybe I'll put New Orleans up next week, though, per your request.
Just don't do any of the Maddie's pictures that we have together.
Oh, I could.
Do not.
Oh, I have that nice one from when Washington, D.C. of the three of us. I should put that one up.
That was a good one. You can handle that one.
Okay.
Love it. So I just wanted to kick off saying that we have sort of shifted gears with these summits to offer support for Tier 2 shelters. And I'm not sure if Kelly Dewar is on the call, but Kelly Dewar with Maddie's Fund is also going to step up and help support Tier 2 shelters as well. So if there's topics that you all want covered in these, let us know, and we'll try to get outside speakers, and of course all of us and the Maddie's instructors will be here. So today we are joined by Sarah Aguilar, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Gosh. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Aguilar. I previously was the Deputy Director at PAC. I am now Foster Programs Manager for GreaterGood.org, who's a national organization just aimed at making things better for people, pets, and the planet, which is pretty broad. But one of the things that we're engaged in is during disaster response from COVID, we developed Stay Home and Foster and recruited over 80,000 foster applicants from across the country. And a lot of them are folks that I don't think have ever been approached before, that in general, animal welfare is not reaching these people. We had a lot of applicants that didn't know what foster was. They didn't know that foster was needed. They didn't know that they could do it. And so our goal is, at this point, is just to keep expanding the idea of foster and using our resources at a national level to amplify that message that foster is the more humane way to go, that it should just be a normal part of everybody's kind of everyday life, and just sort of demystify what that is.
Thanks, Sarah. And Sarah also has done just an amazing job of change management, both at PAC and just, I mean, really with a lot of other organizations as well, just how to communicate to staff about changes and that sort of thing. And the last time that we spoke prior to the holiday weekend, it seemed like this was a topic where a lot of you were needing some extra support and guidance. And so again, we want this to sort of feel like a discussion and a place where we can hear what's going on with you all. And I just ask when you talk, if you could just tell us where you're from and what your role in your organization is, that would be fantastic. And it's a small enough group that I'm almost tempted for all of us to just go around as quickly as possible and introduce ourselves, unless that doesn't seem like the best use of time. Okay, well then let's do that if you don't mind. Do the instructors want to kick it off real quick and then we can move into everybody else?
I'll go first. Beat you to it. I'm Monica Brendan. I am the Maddie's Director of Feline Lifesaving at American Pets Life.
I'm Faith Wright. I'm the Maddie's Shelter Management Advisor at American Pets Alive.
I'm Claire Callison, and I'm the Maddie's Canine Lifesaving Advisor at American Pets Alive. We have long titles.
Jordana?
Hey guys, I'm Jordana. I am the Maddie's Medical Program Advisor for American Pets Alive.
And I'm Cassandra Mincing. I am Maddie's neonatal director for American Pets Alive.
Casey, do you want to introduce yourself too? And Maggie?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure. I'm Casey Spain. I'm the marketing and communications manager for American Pets Alive.
And I'm Maggie Lynch. I'm the development director for APA and also raise money for AmPA and HAS.
And I think Bobby's on the call too, or he might have just hopped off. But Bobby's the director of implementation for the Human Animal Support Service. Oh, Bobby's here. Bobby, do you want to introduce yourself? Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
All right. Well, Bobby, if you want to just introduce yourself through the chat while we keep moving along. If other folks just want to sort of hop in and say maybe who you are, where you're with, if you are a tier 2 shelter, and if you want to identify one challenge in maybe like 3 words or something that you're dealing with now, we can.
I'm Chris Fitzgerald in Rochester, New York. I'm the director of animal services. We're a tier 2 organization, and I'm struggling with communications both internally with my team, but also with our rescue partners are having a hard time understanding what we're doing.
Excellent, thank you. How about Allison Harper?
Hi, this is Allison. I'm at the Brenham Pet Adoption Center. We're in Texas, South Texas, almost right between Austin and Houston. And we're a tier 2 shelter. And I think I agree with Chris. I think trying to communicate what we're doing to people, because there's just so many moving pieces, has been difficult for us. And we've had some rumors going around town that we're pretty much closed down and we're not taking anything in and not doing anything really, and nothing could be further from the truth. So we're always looking for ways to get the word out. And it's nice to meet y'all. I think I've seen some of you before.
Thank you. How about Becky Best?
Oh, hi, Becky Best with Houston Pet Set. I'm not actually a shelter, we're a nonprofit, but we work with about 80 different local rescue groups. And so sometimes we're kind of that bridge between the shelter and the rescue groups. So I'm just trying to learn more about what's happening with the shelters so that we can learn to better support what's going on there, and then help to get our rescue groups kind of looking in that same direction to be a support system to our shelters.
Fantastic. And where did you say that you're from?
I'm from Houston Pet Set in Houston, Texas.
Excellent, thank you. How about Erica Leckington?
Hi, I'm Erica. I am from Tallahassee Animal Services. We are not a tier 1 or tier 2 shelter, but I always hop on these calls because I find them very informative. And I also have my intake counselor on this call. She's also our lost found coordinator, Melissa, so you'll see her name on the screen too. We've affected her job more than anything during COVID, so that's why I always try to have her hop on, because we're just making so many changes. She's the one that's just treading to keep up.
We're happy to have you. Thanks for being here. It's always nice to see you. Kathy Duncan?
Hi, everybody. Kathy Duncan, Manager of Animal Services with the City of Brampton Animal Services, and we're in Ontario, Canada. We are pleased to be a Tier 2 shelter. Also on the call with us is Stephanie Miller. She's one of our registered vet techs, but she's been not doing that job for a number of weeks now and has been helping us wade through all the potential changes related to the HAS model. I think the reason that the call changed to support Tier 2 shelters was because of me going blah last call. Caught me at a pretty good time. We had a really rough call the day before with the staff to introduce the model, and so it was great to have this group to talk to on Friday afternoon. For us, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd gotten home and sort of gone, I don't know, should I do this? Stephanie's on the call. Do I really need to worry about it? But it was so uplifting to have all of your support. So thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for being here. Kim Waters. We cannot hear you if you're talking, Kim. The awkward moments of Zoom.
Kim, unmute yourself or chat. Kim's with Pflugerville Pets Alive.
Yeah, okay, great. Melissa.
I think I introed her earlier. She's with me.
Okay, excellent. We'll keep moving. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Casey. I'm the Associate Director at the Central Missouri Humane Society in Columbia, Missouri, and we are a Tier 2 shelter. Right now we're working in teams, so that has been a little difficult trying to navigate and make sure we're communicating between teams while part of our team is working half the week and the other is working the other half of the week. And one of the big struggles right now is kitten season has officially hit, and so there's a massive amount of cats in our community in need. So we're trying to make sure that we can keep length of stay low and get as many out to foster as possible. But being the only open door shelter in our area, we serve our area as well as a bunch of rural communities that have no resources. So we're a little overwhelmed with that at the moment.
Wonderful, thank you. And Stephanie, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Stephanie, I'm with Kathy. We're a Tier 2 shelter in Ontario, Canada. I apologize if it gets noisy here. I have construction going on in my house right now. So much the same struggles that Kathy was talking about, just with getting our team onboarded. And I guess I struggle because I'm working from home remotely, so I don't really have that one-on-one with the team. So I feel a bit out of the loop sometimes.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a lot of the struggles are similar in terms of communicating throughout the organizations and communicating outward into your communities as well. And I'm hoping that Sarah can sort of give us a little bit of thought around how this all sort of happened at PAC and within PIMA and Tucson. And then maybe we can ask her some questions and just keep moving along with this conversation and hopefully leave with some solutions today for you all and for us too on our team.
Sure, thanks, Rory. So when I joined PAC, it was a relatively high-performing shelter. We were still euthanizing thousands and thousands of pets annually, but there was a lot of distrust with the volunteers, and staff was still really uncomfortable with new leadership. And for me, I think the things that made the biggest difference were the willingness to be transparent about what was going on, being available to answer questions and hear concerns without judgment, and then also being able to really kind of communicate what the vision was and how everybody's pieces fit together. So it was important that, officers understood their effects on intake and length of stay, and that clinic understood their effects on foster, that all of those things were super integrated, and that everyone grew more aware of those connections. And to really, I guess the next piece would be to really be transparent and have conversations with the community, sharing, this is what we're trying to do, these are our challenges, this is where we need your help, this is what we want to do, and this is why, and having pathways, it's not the right word, but having the systems to collect feedback from not just our staff and volunteers, but our community as well. And it helps people to buy in and builds trust when they understand, when they feel that you're being honest and that you're not hiding things. And I think that's really one of the biggest pieces, and it can be really hard to have those open conversations and to be transparent.
Thank you. And circling back to Kathy and Erica and Stephanie and Chris, who all mentioned sort of communication issues. I know others did too, but can you name specifically sort of like what is a struggle and what feels like a struggle and what tools you feel like you're missing or what pieces you feel like are challenging?
So it's Kathy. I would echo, and I don't remember, I apologize, somebody else who commented that they're working in teams. And so communicating between the teams when you've got some people in the building at some time. And what we've done is, thankfully, I mean, I have to give the city of Brampton huge kudos, but even though our team members are not necessarily working full weeks, they're getting paid their full salary still. But to be frank and fair, what a number of them have sort of figured that means is I'm getting paid to be off. So when we try to set up Skype calls or things to bring the whole team together, you know, we're not in a position where everybody is necessarily available and quote unquote at work. And because we're frontline operational staff, kennel attendants and animal control officers, et cetera, those people who are not physically at work and on shift don't have access to corporate technology. So, you know, it's to some degree or another, the feeling is like, why should I use quote unquote my time and my stuff and my data to call in to work when I'm not there?
Mm.
Right. One of the things that they did at PAC, because they had the same thing, right? So there's a shelter that has roughly 100 team members, and now all of a sudden they're split and there's no overlap at all. And so it was almost like having to do the first half of the week and then repeat on the second half. So the first day of each team's week, you would have an all-staff meeting. And it was done through Zoom. There was a like 15-minute briefing each day. And then on that day where the shifts sort of, they didn't overlap, but one would be morning and one would be evening, there was a like a transitional meeting between the two so that any changes or things that needed to be communicated for consistency purposes, that they could share that information. I don't know, the way that we did it, we didn't have folks attending on their days off because they were still working 40-hour weeks in, you know, 3.5 days.
Those are still good ideas, Sarah. Much appreciated.
We started our team, our A and B teams actually moved, I'm trying to think, last month, midnight, I think, to 10-hour days. So 1 week you're working 40 hours in the shelter and you get sort of one standby day. And then the following week you're working 30, and then the following week you're working 40 hours a week. So you're either on 30 hours or 40 hours each week. And on your standby day, you are having to log in for a Zoom meeting. So as long as you have a smartphone, then you can log in. And because we're a city, we have other buildings and that kind of thing, not for animal services, but we essentially said, hey, look, if you can't log in with your phone, we can find you a computer somewhere else in another building that you're gonna have to enter. And sure enough, you know, everybody has a phone, but the city was very generous in the beginning. And they said that when we're paying you on standby, we're paying you to stay home and stay safe. We are not paying you to do anything else other than that. So once we started really drilling that in, then people really took notice. And they've also been able to participate in webinars. We've had staff do SOPs and those sorts of things that they can still sort of do from home.
Yeah, Kathy, I know that we have some time allotted next week. So I think what I'll probably do is I'd love to go into a little bit more context with you as far as like how many staff you have, what are the shifts they're working, where is the overlap, what technology can we use? But as far as a broader conversation and getting people involved, I'm always of the mindset of not recreating the wheel. So one of the things that I wanted to share was actually Casey Pet Project, one of the Tier 1 shelters. They did a town hall meeting for their volunteers. And that's actually on that YouTube link there. So they had a great conversation. They got a ton of great feedback. They described this project essentially through a lens that would be very digestible by their followers and volunteers. So I encourage you to do the same, right? Always use your voice because you know what is going to resonate with your community. Our marketing team is also working on putting together some communications decks. And those are going to be also for sort of different audiences as well, because the conversation is always, what is your audience, right? Is it your internal staff? Is it your community stakeholders? Is it, you know, adopters, volunteers, donors, whatever it might be. So over the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, our goal is to start getting those assets for you as well. So that way you can use these decks. We're going to save some room at the end of those PowerPoints, 2 or 3 slides that can sort of be your call to action, because we know that you'll want to be able to modify those decks to really talk about specific things that you're interested in talking about with your group. So I think that's going to be really great. Another thing that we've been getting a ton of feedback on is, you know, the power of this movement right now is really in the coalition, right? You're not in this alone. We just launched our Facebook page, which I know you saw on the morning call. And so I would encourage you to share that with your staff and have them follow it, because there really are, you know, industry leaders and big shelters that are getting involved, that are getting a ton of positive press right now. And so it really adds a lot of credibility to what you're trying to accomplish. And so those are just some of the things. I completely align with what Sarah is saying as well. I'm of someone who, when I was working at Front Street, it's really about over communication, right? Give them so much information, overload them. And also I would say, Kathy, it's a level of accountability, right? Like, you're the boss, they're your staff. Don't let them tell you what the hell you're going to do and not do, right? If they're working and they're being paid, get on the freaking computer, listen to this, turn on your monitor, engage, right? So, you know, I think if we, next week, I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm hoping you'll come back next Friday and have some good solutions.
I note that you only gave me 15 minutes next week to talk to you, Bobby, so I'll look forward to hearing from you.
I literally just went in my calendar and bumped it to 45, so we're good to go.
And
sorry not to interrupt, but Kathy, we also in the clinic made, if people were working from home, in the start of COVID, they weren't required to be on Google Meets or Zoom or anything like that, but now we require everyone, if you're working from home, you have to join the group, and everybody can talk to each other, they can see each other. So there's some accountability, it helps with communication. And I think I'm kind of with Bobby though, I think people want to be held accountable. And when you hire the standard, then they more often rise up to it.
Yeah, we've seen some of that, certainly with some of the staff for sure. And yeah, I knew about the Facebook page, Bobby, because it came out in something, not just the call this morning, I knew about it earlier this week, but so yeah, just trying to drill down and determine what's appropriate to share with staff now and moving forward. I mean, I shared the website with them a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, and so I'm still struggling to get people to sort of sign up for, you know, which one of the elements do you want to champion, what do you want to work on. So now I'm going to start needling them about that as well. But I laugh, Bobby, with respect to your comments about its accountability. You know, I work in a union shop.
Yeah, mine, I mean, when I was with the city of Sacramento, I mean, it took us 4 years to reclassify our animal care attendants because of union disputes. So I'm right there with you. And I think it's, you know, I think the momentum has to grow from within. And so I think versus taking this, I need to get everybody on board approach, I think you need to find your real leaders within your organization. I'm sure some of them are on this call. And, you know, the biggest movement happens in lunchrooms, right? And break rooms typically, and we don't have that now, right? So I would just encourage them to spend time with their peers, call their peers, engage in these conversations, and remind them that they really are redefining what their jobs are going to look like in the future. So it's better to be part of the conversation. And what we've seen from a union component to this too is that, and we do have a union working group that we're starting, is that, for example, at Front Street, when we tried to reclassify animal care attendants, it took us 4 years because they didn't have a seat at the table when we were talking about what they needed to do in the future. The second time that we did it, we actually had 3 sort of the leaders from the animal care attendant group a part of the conversation from the beginning. And that reclassification only took 3 months. And so I think it's really just allowing them to lead, right? And getting to be a part of the conversation.
Chris, what's going on for you? What are you mentioned communication struggles. Do you want to share a little bit more detail about what you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's somewhat similar. I mean, I was working remotely for mostly for 3.5 months, and dialed into everything that was happening nationally, but most of the team wasn't, and so I was sharing information with them through Zoom staff meetings and then links to webinars and so forth. But I wasn't here, and I don't stand over people and make sure that they watch videos or read emails. But most recently, just this week, really, we've gotten some concerns voiced from our rescue partners that have been under the impression that we're doing something different than what I had intended. So I'm realizing that I've dropped the ball on certain things, or I didn't communicate well with my team so that the message got out to the larger community of partners. And so we're looking to rectify that. So I've sent a few emails. I've asked if they want to have a meeting. We're in the process of setting up a meeting that would be sort of like a town hall, probably in a park with social distancing, because they didn't like the Zoom idea. But that's where I am right now, trying to do a little damage control, I guess. It seems crazy because everything else is so positive about what we're doing. But I can't expect everybody to connect the dots when I haven't shown them all of the dots, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
Chris,
led them by the nose.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, like your struggles align with pretty much every other organization or community that we're having conversations with, and it's really just the process of change management, right? So the people that are triggered the most through change management or redefining what we're doing are people where you're either messing with their financials, right, or their identity. And I think the biggest thing has been with rescues is what is their identity moving forward. So we actually did the same thing we had the same issue in the state of South Carolina. So we actually did a statewide webinar with HSUS last week. Shelly Simmons was on that, Dr. Josh Fisher, Matt Pepper from Michigan, and then a couple of the state directors for HSUS. And I know their goal is to really move through state by state to be able to give Haas a platform to talk about the future of animal sheltering. So if on a kind of micro level, any of us, if they do choose to use the internet and Zoom, any of us from the Haas movement or other directors that are involved can help join those conversations with you to show that you're in alignment with what other people are saying. We're happy to do that. We're honored to do that. And then once these statewide webinars start being published as well, I'll share those because those are specifically directed toward rescue partnerships to help alleviate a lot of their stresses. And so our conversation, I mean, the simplest way, the talking points for us are HOS does not mean less services, it means more. And HOS does not mean turning our backs on the community, it means empowering the community. And as far as what rescue partnerships look like in the future, it's not clearly defined. And in order to be able to define that, we need more people from the rescue world to come have a seat at the table because we're all changing and growing together. And without them having a voice, we don't know what they need. So it's really more of that inclusive mindset. So happy to talk offline to help you with that as well.
Thanks, man.
Well, and to that point too, Paula Powell in El Paso, she's really been spending a lot of time working with each one of her rescues, doing a lot of one-on-one calls with them and just bringing them to the table and letting them know that they're absolutely instrumental in what is going on in the city and making sure that they understand fully what her plans are and kind of including them in the outlines for what she's going to do, the next strategy that she's going to move forward with and all of that. So I think if you can bring your rescue partners in super early and just be up front with them and really just open, honest, and transparent, that you can't do this without them. It's no different. You still need them just as much. It's just done in a different way at this point. And that's really, she's been able to gain so much support from her rescue groups because of that.
Yeah, Paula does a really excellent job of this. I'm sort of wondering what we can do on working groups to support what y'all are dealing with. Like, what would be a useful tool right now? Would it be communications? Like, could we help with templates of communication inward, or you know what I mean? Like, look at sort of the model that Sarah was speaking to at PIMA. What could be useful? What's missing?
I think templates would be great, you know, or like a checklist of, you know, here's the internal communications, the external communications. Yeah, I'm sure some of us are wearing multiple hats, and we're like you know, we're our PR reps as well as our grant writers, as well as our, you know, this, that, and the other. So, so it's just, it can be a bit overwhelming to be managing all of the learning and implementation as an individual.
Would it be helpful also to have those talking points, or like, I know early in COVID, AmPA put together like sample press releases and things. And so all of those tools are available, but I don't know that there's a checklist or just like, here's sort of your key talking points that you want to repeat to your leadership, you know, whether it's your city council or your county board of supervisors. Here's the things that, you know, you want to touch on to engage your rescues, like where it's sort of both of those, right? The checklist and bullet points.
Yeah, I think both.
And I think, I'm going to back up just a second. I think one of the things that I heard that is really key is that if and when you identify that you've dropped the ball on something or that you made a misstep, acknowledging that to the people that it affects, I think goes a long way to building your trust with them. And saying, here's what I want to do to correct this. What else can I do? You're really valuable. Let's work through this together. And that can be really hard, right? Because it's, I've got so much to do. They should just know I'm busy. But taking the time to have that discussion is really important.
Yeah, I agree. That's where we are right now. So I've started it with a few groups and working my way through like 4 dozen more.
Yeah, kudos to you. That's a tough job. It's really important.
And I'm wondering if then like our Google group can become a place where like if you wanted like feedback or thoughts on that, you can send out to the rest of the tier 2 and we could offer feedback, or when you have completed something, like sending it out so others can sort of see what is successful and what hasn't been successful. You know, like I think part of the collaborative nature of this project is just that peer support. So hopefully we can figure out some way to facilitate that for you all and help facilitate that. And of course, like feedback's always welcome.
So maybe a good question then, should those kind of comments, questions, calls for help go through the Google group then, or some other forum? Is that for you, Bobby? Did I lob that up for you?
We're aligned, man. I think my recommendation right now would be use the Google group. I think that we are really trying to hyper focus on internal comms over the next week or two. We know this project's been moving really fast and we've been trying to build this infrastructure for the working groups, but we really feel like we need to provide more value to the tier 2 as well. So we actually have Kelly Dewar, who is from Maddie's, amazing instructor, amazing person, and she's going to be really providing more support to the tier 2 group as well. And so yeah, use the email for now. And I promise you, fixing all those problems is our priority. So thanks for bringing that up.
And sorry, Bobby, but to Chris's point, I feel like so there's the email group, there's the Google, and then there's the Maddie's Pet Forum as well, right? So I haven't even had a chance. I looked at the Maddie's Pet Forum, I logged in, I signed up and everything else, and I have not had a chance to look back at it since I did that. So I feel like we really need to coalesce that stuff into one spot where we either know we have to go looking for stuff or it just comes to us via the email, because you know, some of the stuff that's come through the email group has been amazing. And so I've been forwarding a bunch of those to Stephanie and to our other team members. But yeah, I need kind of one place to look. I got so much going on.
Yeah, and I've been having calls with a lot of the tier 2 directors just to get their feedback. And I think it's always a struggle because we always want to remove barriers, right, and add support. And then when we send you to a different platform or channel can make it more difficult. So Rory and I are actually talking offline and with Kelly to try to finalize that by early next week. But my recommendation would be, like, right now, if you have an issue, use the Google group.
And the Google group and the email address are the same. So that's one tool. And then the Maddie's Pet Forum, I think what is challenging about that is that you can't respond from email. So you have to sign in. So we're realizing it might not be the most useful tool for what you all are needing in terms of communication. So for now, let's lean on that email address.
Thanks for that clarification, Rory, because I would have thought that the Google group was actually where the Google Drive stuff is residing, and I thought maybe I was missing something.
Yeah, not at all. And we are sort of like working to figure out the internal communication process for all of this. It's just become it's great that it's become this huge project, but it's become an enormous project. And so there's just a million moving parts. But I think hopefully, like, having these weekly check-ins too, and just sort of like getting to know each other on this call, and will help us to know what to sort of push to the top of our to-do lists too in terms of this stuff. So it's really good to hear this. I'm curious, like, I guess
Rory?
really, oh,
Rory,
sorry.
can I ask a question before we move on?
Please.
Just there's like 3 links that, are in the chat right now. So that's tough to manage too. I don't know how many windows I have open right now, but I am forever throughout the whole day, like, opening up these links to some resource that someone thinks that we should be using in some way. So if are they being managed in some way so that there's sort of a central hub where we can go for, resources by topic, or is each working group going to be providing those? Because right now, like, I opened all 3 of these and they're open on my desktop, and they'll probably be open for a week, and then we'll have a power shutdown like we did yesterday, and I'll forget about them.
It's a really good question. And so sort of in the vein of what we did for the COVID resources, and what the instructors worked so hard on for the COVID resources, of putting this like really robust toolkit together, we're hoping that we can start doing that and using our resource page on the AmPA page, and also like storing those on Facebook, so that the same resources will be in a few different places, but that we won't lose things. And we're trying to figure out like the best method of that. And I think it's going to be really similar to the COVID, what were we calling it? Preparedness guide. So that those documents will be like living documents. You can filter through by topic and all of this. And Casey, is that also going to be living on the Haas website, the resource list?
We haven't worked that out yet, but I think it should. And I think if that would be useful, we'll get it both on the Haas website and the AmPA Haas page. That way it can live in a few different places so that you guys can access it easier.
And for now, Chris, like if you want to, email us if you saw a resource, but then you don't remember where it was or something like that while we get organized, just feel free to email us, and we'll get you what you need.
Yeah, and Chris, the goal is going to be, people like Faith are super organized and have really strong IT skills. So we're actually going to have our team go through all of the tier 1 emails and the tier 2 emails that have ever been sent, because there's so much good content in there, and we're going to start organizing those as sort of the foundation of this new toolkit deal that we're building. So there might be something you saw 2 weeks ago where you're like, oh crap, I forgot about that, and hopefully we'll put it in the right place for you.
And I wanted to also mention to you, Kathy, and to everybody, if there are other folks from your organization that you want on the tier 2 email list, let us know so that you don't have to be forwarding those, and we can add your number 2 or a couple people to that as well. We've done that for the tier 1 organizations. So if there's someone that you're always forwarding this stuff to, just let us know.
Stephanie.
Okay. Great.
And then I have a couple of other people. I'll send the info to Bobby.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, she already private chatted in your email, so we're good.
I'm on it.
And So we've talked a little bit about community, like we've talked a little bit about communication inward and all of this, and then I'm just like wondering, and I imagine that the instructors are too, of like, what are the specific touchy points that are challenging? Like, is it just that, because we talked a little bit about that last week, but I'm just wondering, like, are there specific points of this that feel confusing and hard for people, or is it just the whole changed like altogether, and maybe someone who hasn't shared about what they're going through can hop in and share a little bit?
Emily, we haven't heard from you today.
So I'm not at a tier 1 or tier 2 shelter. I'm at Pasadena Humane, but I am helping out Riverside County with some of their stuff, and Oakland Animal Services a little bit. In making changes like this in the past, though, I will say that changing somebody's daily tasks is a big deal for their mental health. And especially people, I know we've all gotten in the habit of asking these questions, are you a people person or an animal person, or however you phrase that in an interview, and we want to hire customer service oriented people. But as we move people from the back of house to the front of house, people are very uncertain about their skill sets. And there's a chasm of feeling unsupported, no matter what I kind of do to say, like, you can make any mistake you want, go ahead, I'll be here for you, if they don't feel like it's their wheelhouse. And I think that's where we get into more of those union issues, and people act out in kind of different ways. And I guess I kind of want to hear about how people get out ahead of that conflict of change management. I heard you earlier saying, like, it's your job to be on the Zoom calls, I'm your boss, it's your job. And I like, that's kind of my last go-to in leading staff. Well, I'll go there, but I'd like them to come with me a little bit more willingly. So if anybody has thoughts about that, and are you seeing that conflict with some of these things?
I've always found it, I mean, just to back up what Sarah said, giving them all of the information, even if it's information that you don't think they need, is helpful, because then they can decide what is important to them. So you can just present it all on a platter to them, and then they can pick and choose. But I am a firm believer in kind of just over communicating everything. If I leave a meeting and I'm going to talk to staff, I'm going to go tell them, and I'm going to go tell them exactly what we talked about in the meeting, and tell them I'll follow up with the action items later. But I do think communicating just about everything to them, and then letting them decide what is important in their daily jobs is key.
I agree. I would say too, one of the things I've seen in some groups is some of the higher level meetings, we kind of take it for granted or assume that all the staff have the information. And it's interesting how sort of the uncertainty and change can somehow translate into job insecurity, and that we're not even sure if, we're going to have our jobs anymore. And so when that's not even on the table, it kind of takes everyone by surprise. But I think just even getting more basic to that, of reassuring people, and hopefully they'll be a little bit more open to the change, and they're not being replaced. So
I think there's definitely some value to asking your teams, like, what are they concerned about? What are their fears? What are the challenges that they're experiencing? We did that at PAC. I think we've done 2 of them, where it was just sort of a, hey, what's the temperature with our team, right? How are you feeling outside of work? How are you feeling about, what we're doing? How are you feeling about these things? And it was really interesting to learn that for a lot of the staff, their biggest concern was that they didn't feel that they had support for their home, if the people in their home or their family members, if something were to go wrong, and it really was affecting their work. And so understanding what their concerns are, is it that they're worried that they're all going to get fired? Is it that they think the shelter is going to close? Is it that there's something else going on outside And figuring out a way to help them with that or to address those concerns goes a long way.
I think also in our case, you know, sheltering is so chaotic. There's so much chaos on every given day. And I think that's obviously, we understand that during this pandemic, it's allowed us to breathe and step back and go, what will we change when we have the opportunity? So I can appreciate that. But I think because our staff is so used to sort of finding peace in chaos, that's worked well for them. But now that they have mass chaos in their personal life, because nothing is predictable at all during this pandemic, and I'm in Florida, so our cases are through the roof, and we're experiencing sort of COVID for the first time, quite frankly, in our community. So I think that's really adding to the stress. But there's part of me that wants to go back to all of my frontline kennel staff and go, hey, if I told you you had to work at the animal shelter, why don't you write your own job description and see what they come up with? Like, do they want to be part of a wellness program? Do they want to be part of an Into the Streets program? Would they rather be answering phones at the front desk and providing services than just continually not being able to provide those resources? So I think there might be value, at least in our case, to sort of ferreting that out and putting it on them to figure out where they're going to fit into this new.
I think it's also, I think we're forgetting that staff don't understand that no one city is actually executing the Haas model right now. Because we don't have all of the rehoming tools and techniques, because we don't have all of the answers, I think that creates a lot of uncertainty. But I think because we're not telling them that we don't have the finished model yet, they're thinking that this is the Haas model. They're thinking that we're doing the Haas model and we're getting all this negative feedback that's not going well. We're worried about self-rehoming, you know, they're worried about all these things. But I think we're not doing a very good job of telling people this is not the Haas model. The Haas model is a goal that we're all working towards. And it's a tough transition period, but it's gonna be different. It's gonna be better. In a big way. And I know that can also be really scary to people, knowing that their parents don't have all the answers, essentially. But I think for a lot of staff that are on the front lines that don't know what to tell people when they're calling or whatever, is that this is not the finished product.
Kind of on that note, part of the struggle that we have is being a municipality, there's so much red tape. So things like rehoming, the home to home, we've been trying to sign up to that for weeks and weeks. And I keep running into barriers with legal and having to go back and forth between the creators and our legal department. So everything takes so long to actually get it into place. And then staff, as you say, are looking at this thinking we should already be 10 steps ahead, but we're waiting on all of these things to be put into place.
Yeah, I think sounds like some of that could be the things that are discussed in town halls, though. Like, here's what our initiative is that we're working on right now. Here's the hangups that we're running into. This is our goal, you know, to get there, and this is what we're trying to do to get to our goal. That way, they at least feel educated. We heard from our own just Austin Pets Alive staff members that they felt very unvalued and that they felt like their jobs were at risk, because they kept hearing Haas, Austin Haas, Austin Haas, nothing about Austin Pets Alive. They were very confused on what was going on. Then they heard all the bad publicity that was going on in Austin, and we had to have a town hall where we said, wait a second. You know, first off, Austin hasn't even signed on to be a Haas city. Secondly, we want all these things, but there's a lot of pieces that have to go into them. And Ellen kind of explained very, very succinctly where we were at in our city, what programs we were looking at to try to implement, even if the city itself couldn't become a Haas city, and just explained it all. And the staff calmed down immensely.
I think there's been so many kind of large changes, especially for line staff. This is the first time that we've really asked them to be involved and to think about the philosophy underlying animal sheltering and thinking about it really quickly and changing the way we operate really quickly. And that's just hard. That's just decision fatigue. People are tired. And supporting them through that, to know that on the other side of this, or every day it's going to get a little bit better, when every day is really hard at the moment.
Absolutely, and one of the things I'm presenting at HSUS this year, and one of the things that what I'm presenting on is sort of onboarding to animal welfare. I think that it's something that is sort of missed, is that we're all part of this like bigger mission and vision, and sometimes our entry and mid-level staff don't necessarily like have a connection to these larger conversations. And so like finding ways of connecting them. And we know that Gen Z and Gen Y are like very, very interested in connecting to a larger mission. And we have an opportunity, I mean, in animal sheltering where we are connected to these larger missions. So I'm going to be presenting on that at Expo, and I hope that it's helpful, but just like, how do we make these connections? And maybe that helps with change management too. If people sort of feel like they're part of a movement, the movement is sort of like progressing to what's next.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Rory. And Stephanie, just going back to, all the red tape and working with government and legal, I think the thing to really reflect back on though is like, it's about progress, not perfection. And I mean, even if you look at it from HOS or even DEI, right? There was so much momentum very early on that people just wanted to be people of action and move. And obviously we want to do parts of components of this, but this is real systemic reform, right? We're really reimagining everything that we do. And, it's going to take time. We're going to mess things up. We're going to rebuild. But I think as long as we're aiming at that goal and as our vision, then I think we're doing good work. So, and then as far as, Emily, the conversation about your staff, I've always grown up as a servant leader. I've been working in shelters for 12 years. My first job was working front counter intake. And yeah, I mean, having empathy for people the same way that we've had empathy for animals is the only way that we're going to get there. And these are, I mean, such great points from the instructors, right? I mean, just the idea of chaos at home or fear of losing your jobs. It's very rounding, and I think that it's really helped me reflect a lot too. So thank you everyone for all your great viewpoints on this.
And Sarah, you all sent out a survey at PAC, right? And it was pretty simple. I mean, I think it was just actually a survey that SurveyMonkey had made as a template, right? And it was about COVID and...
Yeah, it was, I think it was from SurveyMonkey. It was just like a take the temperature of your organization type thing. And it's just, we changed it a little bit, what's your biggest concern right now? Here's, 8 things. How are you feeling about our response? How are you feeling about the safety of coming to work? Some things like that.
Would it be helpful to get that survey and share it with you all? Is that something that you would want to administer in your organizations? Okay, cool. I'll get it from Kristen. Well, we have 5 minutes left, and I just want to be mindful of anybody who didn't get a chance to talk. Is there anything that you really wanted to say in the last 6 minutes or wanted to share with us? Okay, and then moving forward, like we've said sort of throughout this call will be every Friday at the same time. You can use the same link, and we're gonna really focus in on supporting all of you. So maybe we can spend the last 5 minutes just hearing from you about some topics that you think would be really useful for the coming weeks, and then we can start calendaring those out. Does that sound good? Is this helpful? Do you think this is like a helpful platform?
Yes, extremely helpful.
And
so one thing, Friday at 4 o'clock for us is, Friday at 4 o'clock for anybody, but we've got so much other stuff going on. It's one of the only time slots that's really available, so that's fine. And I would say, looking at going forward, one of the things that was mentioned, I think in Monday's call with the huge group, was Lauren was talking about a script for front desk staff with respect to how to manage calls about stray cats in the community, and being quite firm as far as she was saying. So I was hoping that that was going to be added to the chat. I didn't see it, but certainly that type of thing, like the scripts for front desk staff to speak to members of the public about some of these changes, because yeah, we're going to have to communicate it out to the community for sure, but undeniably people are going to still try to push the staff to say, no, you should be doing what you were doing before. And I want to make sure that all our staff feel comfortable and supported in having sort of a consistent message to provide to the community.
Yeah, that's some of the same. I expressed interest, I think, to both Rory and Bobby about the same thing. So thanks for bringing that up, Kathy. And I think it's about having that consistency in messaging too, and how to nuance a conversation. So it's less about, no, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, this is how we can help you rehome your pet or something. So it's just, I just want to make sure that I don't have to have every conversation, but that I can trust that everybody's going to follow a similar kind of path.
Awesome, that's super helpful. So maybe that is the topic for next week. How do you develop these? What's already out there? We could try to reach out to Katie and see if she could join us. Thoughts about that? Is that useful for other folks? It is more of this communication. It's still like in vein with internal communication and external communication.
Would it be beneficial to sort of put something together just about change management? Is that a conversation that, maybe not just this group, but maybe leaders in general just need some kind of guidance as to how to lead change?
I think so. I mean, there's so much change happening in this program. I feel like we all need that.
Absolutely, I would agree. And I mean, Stephanie shared with me a resource yesterday based on a call she was on for an internal workshop about change management. It would be nice to see, because this group knows what we do, knows the type of people that we're talking to. So something that comes from this group, which maybe brings in standard messages related to change management, is great. But to be able, to Chris's point, to be able to sort of just take it off the shelf and go, okay, I can do this. Let's move forward now with this. That would be awesome.
What if it was laid out like everybody has the rescue person could be your biggest advocate, but they come off as really adversarial, and so this is how you deal with that person, right? I mean, I hate to sort of say
we have that person, Sarah.
Everybody has those, right?
Yeah.
There's certain people. There's the volunteer that's been with you for 15 years and knows so much information, but they're resistant to do anything new. So here's how you talk to that person, right? I hesitate.
Sarah, that sounds great. Include in there some of your seasoned employees that have an understanding of how they want to do things.
Right. Nobody's a good enough pet owner person, and I hate to kind of generalize in those ways, but there's definitely some different tactics that you use for different personalities. And also, I don't know what's going on in the chat, but it just turned into happy hour.
I guess so.
Margaritas.
I told you it was 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Well, it's 5 o'clock now.
It was the tactic part, Sarah, of what you're saying. How do you deal with people that don't agree? Just give them alcohol.
Or drink it yourself and then have that conversation.
I'm down for either.
Well, this is really helpful, and I'm so glad to have time with all of you, and I'm looking forward to having time with every one of you on Fridays. And any questions, just email us. We're going to add the instructors to the tier 2 email thread, and we'll just keep moving through this together. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated, really.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank
Emily,
you.
I'm emailing you right now.
Have a good weekend.